DC Compact Comics are hands down the best value in comics that exist, and I'm going to tell you which ones you should buy. Let's dive in. Up first is Watchmen. Now, this comic book needs no introduction. It is probably the most celebrated graphic novel of all time, and we've covered it once or twice on this channel, such as every format you can collect it in, or our new series where we're reviewing one issue of Watchmen at a time. But Watchmen is the acclaimed murder mystery thriller about a alternate reality of superheroes done by the incredible wizard that is Alan Moore, with art masterfully done in the 9-panel grid by Dave Gibbons. Now, it makes complete sense why the most celebrated of all graphic novels made its way into a compact edition, but how is it for new readers? So on one hand, Watchmen takes place in an alternate history separate from the DC world. So if you do want to read it, you'll be like, wow, this kind of feels like our real world, but some things are different, such as Vietnam's another state, or certain presidents have gotten a third or fourth term. So Watchmen tells the story of this alternate history of America where vigilantes and superheroes have been outlawed by the Keene Act, and one of them gets murdered. So it's an unraveling mystery that you have to figure out. And I actually think it could be good for new readers. Watchmen is great because you can read it as a new reader and take it as a standalone story, but you can also go back to it 10 years later and still get an amazing experience from it. Now, here's the cons for it. Watchmen is a dense book. It is wordy, and there are so many details hidden in the backgrounds of panels. Do I think it's great in the compact format? If it gets you reading, yes, but I think reading it in a trade paperback or a deluxe edition or a larger format might be the better way to go, because of the fact that you really need to pore over the finite details that sometimes get lost in the compact edition. Still, the fact that I can have a copy of Watchmen in my backpack for the rest of my life and pull it out whenever I need to is amazing. So you know what? Give this one a shot if you want something that's different than any of the other books on the list, and if you want to see why Watchmen is so celebrated and why it's considered one of the greatest, not comics, but novels of all time. Let's jump on to the next one in Wave 1. The next one in Wave 1, which we've covered back at our previous video, which you can watch here, is Batman the Court of Owls, done by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Now, this is incredible for new readers. It was a reboot, but also carried on history from what came before in the legacy, but it's meant for new readers. This was done in the New 52. This tells the story of Batman dealing against the mysterious Court of Owls that may or may not exist, and the vicious Talons. It's a story that tests Bruce's connection to Gotham and kind of changes him and shakes him to his very core. I think you are going to love it. This is great if you've never read a Batman comic, and this is great if you've read a lot of Batman comics. And honestly, with the new Absolute Batman coming out pretty soon, you might want to read Scott Snyder's first attempt at the Caped Crusader, or at least the Bruce Caped Crusader. So you are going to love this story. It's great in the compact edition. It includes like pretty much the full story, so you have everything that you need for $9.99. It's kind of a no-brainer. You're going to see epic fight scenes. You're going to see cool moments such as when Bruce or Batman is drugged and you have to flip the compact edition around and around. I'm not going to spoil anything else, but you have to read it. Now, there is collect in other formats, such as an Absolute that's getting a few new ones later this year, and 2 Omnis. But if you are just starting out or you need one for your back pocket, the compact comic is the way to go. So you're going to see the Greg Capullo art that is just masterful for Batman, and the epic Scott Snyder writing that just gets bigger and bigger. And I really hope they come up with follow-up issues to this one in the compact format. But this is one that I'm a huge fan of, and I give it a A+ rating. Okay, now we're moving on to Wave 2. So if you saw the first compact comic, sorry I had to read you the old ones. But this one is All-Star Superman, done by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly, and this is a book I adore. Some people consider this the quintessential Superman story, and I'm sure Bunkmaster Beyond Comics would agree. But this is one that is great for new readers, and it's great for longtime readers. So in this story, Superman is doused with a lethal dose of solar radiation, and his powers are amplified 1,000-fold. So he's more powerful than he's ever been, but his cells are bursting from the power of solar radiation, slowly killing him. Essentially, this Superman is terminal and running out of time. So what would Clark do? What would the Man of Steel do? What would Superman do if he was running out of time? Where would he say his goodbyes? What would be his final acts? What would he do to leave the Earth better without him being there? It is an excellent story that kind of takes place as its own side continuity, so you don't ever have to have read a Superman story before, or you could have read 100 Superman stories and love it. Now, I think this is a smart choice for the first compact comic because it is such a iconic story. but we got to get more Superman, and I know in some future waves we're getting some other iconic Superman stories. So you got to read this one. I think the art by Frank Quietly looks just as good in a small compact size or in the large absolute. There's also a deluxe edition or a trade paperback, but you can't beat getting all of All-Star for $9.99. That's an incredible value. So you definitely have to pick this one up and buy the future Superman ones. We need more Superman in collected editions. You know, we like stuff other than Batman. I know it's Batman Day, but where's Superman's Day? Where's Superman's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Okay, let's move on to the next one in Wave 2. Next up in Wave 2, we got Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin and art by Jamal Campbell. Now, this was my first time reading it, and this was the format I read it in. I had no idea how great this book was, even though I should have known it won a Hugo, which is a huge deal. But this was my first time reading it, and I fell in love with it. It tells the story of Joe, a rookie Green Lantern on a faraway intergalactic planet where there are 3 separate alien races. One of them are plants that eat people. Another one is like AI that exists, and their currency is memes. And basically the whole planet, in order to coexist with these 3 different races that were so different from each other, they changed their DNA to make them no longer feel emotion, thinking, you know, you don't feel emotion, maybe that'll lead to peace. But this world is ripe with corruption and all of the things that we dealt with on Earth, but it's just magnified when you have a billion different aliens living on one planet that don't feel their emotion. But what happens? They invent a drug called Switch Off that makes them feel their emotion again. And all of the stuff that they felt being oppressed and, you know, the boot that's on their neck start bubbling out, and Joe has a crisis on her hand as she tries to reinvent the society. You are going to love this story. It is amazing. The art is to die for. And if you do buy the compact edition and read this groundbreaking story, next year we're getting a deluxe edition. So you can see that awesome art even bigger. But this is one that if you like sci-fi, mystery, Green Lantern, but it's also great because it's a standalone Green Lantern on a new world, you're going to love it. You got to read it. Now we're moving to Wave 3, and they kick things off with Batman Hush, probably the most famous Batman story of all time. And if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Fight me. So this is done by Jeff Loeb, who I adore what they do with Batman. And this time art by the president of DC, Jim Lee. And this was just an excuse for Jeff Loeb to write a story with every Batman villain you can imagine. And Jeff Loeb just crammed every villain and hero that you could think of so Jim Lee could draw it all, and you gotta see this in a bigger format. Or if you only have $10, see it in the compact format. This is a full standalone story. You don't need any prior reading, but it also sets up things you can read in the future, such as the whole Hush omnibus, or you could read the Paul Dini omnibus. There's so many things you could read, such as Heart of Hush. You're going to love it, but this one is one of the best Batman stories ever written and one of my favorite absolutes. So if you think there's a better, more definitive Batman story, let me know. But I'm telling you, Hush is probably one of the best, and it makes sense it's in the compact format. This is great for Batman fans, and it's great for people who have never read Batman before, and that's what makes this compact comic so perfect. Rounding out Wave 3, we have Wonder Woman Earth 1. Now, what I'm going to say is, what does Earth 1 mean if you're a new comic book reader? That was a reimagined universe, which was meant for new readers to jump on, and they were supposed to be grounded, more, you know, realistic takes on superheroes. So, is that good for new readers? Yeah. I will say, though, that maybe a Batman Earth 1 or Green Lantern Earth 1 compact comic could have worked a little bit better. Wonder Woman Earth 1 was written by Grant Morrison, and if you're new to comics, saying Grant Morrison is weird is the understatement of the century. So in this, Grant Morrison seemed like he took Wonder Woman back to her roots of bondage. A lot of tied up scenes of Amazonians. And if you want to Google Wonder Woman's bondage history, there's a whole movie on it. But it is a weird reimagining of Wonder Woman that tries to ground her with her weird alien Themyscira origins in a grounded, you know, realistic America. And I will say that I don't know if this is the Wonder Woman book I would have made as the first compact comic. I think Gail Simone or Greg Rucka could have been a better place to start. So this one, I'm going to give it a lower score, but I do think it's worth reading, but it's not my pick for the first Wonder Woman compact edition. So take that as you will. It's okay. The art is great. And if you want to see Wonder Woman tied up, by all means, this is your book. But let's jump on to Wave 4. Okay, we're in the home stretch, guys. We're in the final wave that's been released so far. And we have Joker, which is the tiniest compact comic that they've released. It looks like it's half the size of the other ones. They could have easily given us a Joker Luthor compact comic and it would have been perfect. But you know what? Is $10 worth it for this Joker story done by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo? No, I will pay you $10 if you don't buy this story. It is disgusting. It is horrible. It tells the unhinged psyche of the Joker from the perspective of a low-level thug that works for him, and it is disgusting. Joker does unspeakable things, and if you've been burnt out on the Joker, this will make you... I don't even want to... It's a terrible book, and I don't like it at all. I would have preferred a Luthor one. Now, you know what? Is it good for new readers? I mean, I guess if you've seen like the Christopher Nolan films and you kind of like that Joker vibe, you might kind of feel a similar vibe with this one. But honestly, I think that maybe a Killing Joke would have been better, or anything, you know. But this is not a book that I recommend, so I'm giving this one an F and saying this should be the compact comic that you skip, even though I own it in an absolute and a compact. Send help. Okay, we've made it to the last one. This is Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens. Now, what I'm going to say first is this is not a Harley Quinn solo with, you know, Catwoman and Poison Ivy as like backup characters. This is a true ensemble cast where all three of them take equal billing. Now, is this great for new readers? I will say there might be some questions at first. Even me, who a seasoned reader, maybe not the most seasoned reader, but a little seasoned, you know, white person seasoned, but I had some questions. You kind of have to read Final Crisis, which is not something a new reader should read, but you have to realize that Bruce Wayne Batman is missing right now. So you got that out of the way. Okay, are you good to go? But no, who is this Bruce Wayne that's walking around? That's Hush. So you also have to read Heart of Hush. So I'm not trying to scare you off of this because this is an incredible book written by Paul Dini, one of the greatest, one of the GOATs. Paul Dini wrote the best episodes of Batman the Animated Series and wrote some of the best comics of all time. So if you can get past those initial few issues, maybe have a couple questions, it's okay to not know everything. You don't have to be an encyclopedia reader. If you have questions, reach out on the Discord or Google it, ask a friend, or just keep reading a little bit. And I promise you, this story is amazing. And yes, if you want to know the most, you know, important question, you get the backstory of Gaggy. Now, you guys know here on The Brave and the Boys, my favorite villain in all of DC Comics is Gaggy. Hashtag justice for Gaggy. So you got to read it. You got to read Gaggy's tragic backstory, how it ties it into the Flying Graysons. And you got to read this awesome story because I love whenever Dick Grayson is Batman. So this is an awesome book. You just might have a couple of questions in the beginning if you're a new reader, but it is still one I am giving an A+ rating to. And that's going to bring the video to a close. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a tremendously fun video to do. I love making these kind of videos for you. Sorry it had been about a week or two since we did a video. It was Jordan's birthday, my wife's birthday, my anniversary. So you know what? Work-life balance, but I'm back and better than ever. So I want to remind you guys about our Discord link down below. There we have book clubs and you can meet new comic book friends and ask questions. It's good for new or old fans alike. I want to give a shout out to Organic Price Books who help sponsor a lot of these videos. So there, if you're buying 1 to 3 books, you can save $2 with the code BraveBoys, or if you're buying 4 or more, you can save 5% with the code BraveBoysSIT. And the last way you guys can support us is through our Patreon. If you want to join the free tier, that's awesome, and it's the best way to get all the notifications and updates for everything that we do anywhere. And if you do want to support us, there is a paid tier, and we're working to give you guys some sort of benefits. It's $3 a month, cheaper than a cost of a single issue of a comic book. And lastly, go ahead and smash that like button. Comment down below what compact comic is your favorite, or what book you think DC should make in a compact comic, and keep reading and stay brave.